Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to do bracketology for SEC teams with 2 games left in the regular season. Let's start at the top, Blake. Alabama has been a 1 seed for quite a while. Not a lot to be unhappy with from the Alabama resume standpoint. 2 in the net, 13 strength of schedule. Number 7, non-conference strength of schedule. The resume computers, which are BPI and ESPN strength of resume, average Alabama's number 2 in the country. And the predictive ones, which are BPI, Ken Palm, Sagarin, average the Crimson Tide is number 2. Also, 25-4 overall, 15-1. Unbeaten at home. No losses outside of quad 1. Look, Blake, if you want to pick nits with the Tide's resume, I think Alabama's only got 1 win against a team that in Joe Lunardi's bracketology this morning was listed as better than a 7 seed or better than an 8 seed. That's Houston on the road, but, I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? Alabama is going to be a 1 seed. I don't know if it'll be the number 1 overall tournament seed. If you want to get into big wins, that's where Kansas could become problematic because the Jayhawks have a bunch of those, but right now we're just talking about Alabama. Is it going to be a 1 seed or the number 1 seed for the entire tournament, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, no one's moving ahead of Alabama if they win the rest of their games in the regular season. And, I don't think it matters what they do in the SEC tournament. If they lose the first game, I still think they're number 1 overall seed.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, that's like you said, it's if you're going to pick apart Alabama's resume, if you're trying to find anything, just from the basketball resume standpoint, who could you possibly move in front of them, right now? And I think it's very clear that the number of teams you can move ahead of them are 2, and you have to have 4 number 1 seeds. So it's like there's no one from the 2 line has any sort of argument to move ahead of them. So it's like that's why if you're asking, well, what happens if this happens or this happens? I am honestly of the opinion that if they win on Wednesday night, it doesn't matter what they do in their next 2 games. They're a number 1 overall seed. May not be the number 1 overall seed, but yeah, Alabama's the number 1 seed, and that's not changing.
Next up, the Tennessee Vols, who are required by federal law to be number 3 in the net. Yeah. Vols are 31 strength of schedule, 43 non-conference strength of schedule. The strength of resume computers average Tennessee at 15 overall. The predictives rank the Vols at 4, 21-8, 10-6. Only real negative for the Vols, a 4-5 mark away from home. 3-3 quad 2 record isn't outstanding, and neither is 6-5 quad 1. But you dig in a little bit and you look at who Tennessee has done it against. Home wins against Alabama and Texas. Neutral court wins over Kansas, Maryland. Auburn at home. Southern Cal neutral site. Mississippi State a sweep. Look, as we've said for a while, Tennessee's big wins are about as good as anybody, maybe better than anybody, not in the Big 12. And the Vols, again, have locked in with big wins, a nice body of work. And, I mean, worst case scenario, what? Tennessee maybe drops to a 5, if even that. I mean, Tennessee has done so much stuff. It's really hard to move the Vols down much. Also going to be hard for the Vols to get better than a 2 seed, and that could also be a little bit of a reach depending on what teams in front of Tennessee do.
Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, they lose out. Arkansas and Auburn. I don't know. Lose to I don't know, pick somebody. Georgia in the SEC tournament or something. Maybe they fall to the lower 4s, but I don't think they're hitting the 5 range. I think they're a 4 or higher, the way I see it right now. Barring, I mean, because look, if we look at bracket matrix, like right now, here's the 5s: Miami, Xavier, St. Mary's, San Diego State. St. Mary's, San Diego State are not going to have enough to move ahead of them, even if they win their conference tournaments. Xavier, I don't know. Miami, I don't think is going to have the resume in the ACC to move ahead of the Tennessee, even if Tennessee struggles down the stretch. So, and Miami just lost at home to Florida State. Can't forget that. So, yeah, I think Tennessee's a top 4 seed, unless things get a little iffy. Like I said, if they lose out in the regular season and then lose to add a bad loss in the SEC tournament, then maybe but it's just right now, I don't see it. So.
Next up, Texas A&M. The Aggies pretty solidly in at this point. Joe Lunardi had Texas A&M at 6 on Monday morning. Net of 27.
That would have been
Strength
on
of schedule 63 overall.
Just quickly on Lunardi, he only updates on Tuesdays and Fridays, so that would have been the Friday update that they were at 6.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah,
okay.
Just for reference.
Yeah, so a loss this weekend could have changed that. But in any case, strength of schedule 63 overall, non-conference strength of schedule 260. That is one of several caution flags with the Aggies, I guess you could say. Another one being the 1-3 neutral court record. Another one being 2 quad 4 losses. Aggies have some nice wins: Tennessee at home, Arkansas at home, sweeps of Auburn and Missouri. And look, if you like the eye test, you like the Aggies. They've been playing well for a while. Strength of resume computers average them at 27. Predictive computers average them at 24. Don't see A&M being left out at this point, even with 2 losses and an opening round loss in the SEC tournament, Blake.
No, they're locked. Just a matter of seeding at this point for them, and that's where a win at Ole Miss and a win against Alabama, even if they don't win the SEC regular season title, that's another huge win. So I think they're only moving up unless they lose to Ole Miss. And then I think maybe that adds a bad loss, but yeah, if they win that game, I think in pretty much any scenario, because they're going to have a double bye. So I think in pretty much any scenario, they don't have another bad loss opportunity, if that makes sense. So I think that's why A&M is sitting in a really good spot. And remember what our friend Rocco Miller has always said is, it's always nice to have the double, which is the regular season title and the tournament title. It's still in play for A&M as we record this right now. Like we said, Alabama probably going to be able to do that against Auburn on Wednesday and clinch that, but it is something to at least think about for A&M and how that can affect their seeding too. But yeah, they are a long way from the bubble team that many consider them to be several weeks ago. They are a lock to make the tournament, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see kind of where they wind up in that range. And just for reference, we are recording this on Monday afternoon. Usually, again, we do this. We're just kind of trying to adjust our schedule a little bit this week, and just to make sure you guys have videos coming out on Tuesday morning. So Lunardi's bracket update for the week for Tuesday will probably be out by the time you watch this. So just keep that in mind. We are still kind of, if we bring him up, we're using that, his sort of from last Friday, which would certainly be out of date right now. But
yeah, and speaking of things that have changed since then, I said last week I thought Kentucky maybe with one more win would be a lock. It got one over the weekend. We can debate that. Look, I think Kentucky beats either Vandy or Arkansas. There'll be no doubt about it. If there's any doubt, as it is. Yeah, I think so too. I'm just trying to play it safe. Kentucky is 19th strength of schedule, 64 non-conference strength of schedule, 19th in the resume computers, 18th in the predictives, 20-9 overall, 11-5. Negatives 1-2 neutral court, a quad 3 loss, and a quad 4 loss. The big wins aren't phenomenal, but they're nice. Sweep over Tennessee, A&M and Auburn. The Cats beat at home. Mississippi State on the road. Yeah, I just can't see with all these bubble teams that are damaged goods in a lot of ways. Kentucky's in.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, they can, even if they lose to Vanderbilt at home, will it knock their seeding a little bit? Yes. But, if they lose to Arkansas on the road, that's nothing. You're talking about a top 15 net team, and computers love Arkansas, as we keep saying. So Yeah, I mean, they're in. No matter what happens from here on out, Kentucky's in. Even if they lose out, they have put themselves now in a position where they're in the tournament. But seeding wise, yes, certainly take care of business against Vanderbilt. A win at Arkansas, boost them even more. I don't think it's crazy to look at the possibility that Kentucky can push their way up to a top 5 seed. And the 5 is the limit, I think, at this point. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility they can get there if they were to win out and, let's say, make a run in the SEC tournament to the championship and or win the SEC tournament. It's wild to say that, but like that is an actual real possibility, I think, based on where they're at in terms of wins now and quality wins. So even if they're projected by some people as a 7 or an 8 right now, I think they can absolutely push their way forward considering what that path will look like. A lot of what ifs there, but I think Kentucky is settling in just fine right now. And let me say this quickly, Chris. I would not want to, if they're an 8 seed, I would not want to be the 1 seed. I don't want any part of that. So if I were the 1 or 2 seeds, I would hope Kentucky pushes their way up to a 5 or a 6, because I would not want them in the second round as a 1 or a 2 right now.
Arkansas is a really interesting team, Blake, for reasons I'll get into in just a second. Hogs, 29 strength of schedule, 91 non-conference strength of schedule. The resume computers have the Hogs 25 overall, although there's a split on that. KPI has Arkansas 16. Strength of resume has the Hogs at 33. Predictives love the Hogs. Average of 12 between those three. Now, here's the issues. Arkansas only 8-8 in the league. 10 losses overall, 2-7 on the road. 3-7 quad one. You dig in and look at Arkansas's wins. They've got some nice ones. San Diego State, neutral floor. Missouri and A&M at home, and Kentucky on the road. Now, the problem for Arkansas, of course, was not having Nick Smith Jr. a lot of the time. Part of me says I could make a case where Arkansas maybe gets left out. I don't know that I believe it. Part of me says Arkansas is kind of already in because, okay, let's say it loses a couple more games. Tennessee and Kentucky, does that really hurt a ton? I don't know how it does.
The only reason that hurts is they'd
factor.
be 8-10 in the league. But
Right.
what they have that Mississippi State doesn't have is going to the committee and basically saying, yes, but here's how many of those losses came without our best player. And so I think they could lean on the Alabama precedent of the non under 500 SEC record, because they'd have a really good case for that. Now look, you could still say that since he's been back, right? If they were to lose the next 2 at Tennessee home against Kentucky, I mean, they would have only beaten Florida and Georgia since he's been back, and those are 2 teams that are not near the tournament. So, if you're going to play the argument against it, you could say that. But I think Arkansas I think they're in right now. I think the only way it could even get interesting, which I just don't think it's going to, is if they lose the next 2. And remember, we say all this, like, scoring margin matters too. So keep that in mind as we talk about all this stuff. But you don't want to get blown out right now. That's for sure. If you're a team that's anywhere close to not being a lock. But I just don't see it. And again, we'll have to address some of those scenarios in the tournament once the bracket comes out on Saturday. But I just don't. I think Arkansas is fine. I think the 2 teams I'm most interested to see how they're seeded in the NCAA tournament are going to be Arkansas and Missouri, because I think for different reasons, they of the SEC group are the 2 most fascinating teams just by what their resume is, what the computers think of them, and just some of the different aspects of what they have with their body of work. And yeah, I'd put Arkansas in that category. I think Arkansas seed wise could either completely surprise you in a good way, completely surprise you in a bad way. But I think they're going to get the benefit of the doubt of having their best player back. And even if they lose the next 2, again, barring a loss to an LSU or a South Carolina or something in the SEC tournament, which I don't think they're even going to be in a position for that to happen based on where they could be seated. I don't see it. I think they're in.
Yeah, I think they're in right now. I'm sort of disaster wargaming here.
Oh yeah, we
And
always do that. We're
yeah,
the
yeah,
ultimate
just
pessimists.
right. Well, and here's the thing though, is I look, I feel a little better about Arkansas because the bubble teams, some of these teams that are going to be competing with them, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, teams like that are going to be in a similar picture in terms of conference record, right at 500 or perhaps below. And again, Arkansas's got the ultimate excuse if you start comparing teams. So I think you can certainly, as you just did, make a case that Arkansas is in already.
I think the better question
Boring,
is what
crazy
happens.
stuff.
What happens if Arkansas wins one of these next two, and what does that do for the resume?
Yeah.
It'd be huge. Either one, either at Tennessee or home against Kentucky, and then again, it's SEC tournament. It will matter in some instances, but we're not putting too much stock into that right now because we saw how much it mattered last year. So I'm not even going to the SEC tournament scenarios yet for some of these teams.
Okay, you said Missouri was interesting. Missouri was a 10 last week. I don't know how you leave Missouri out. Okay, and there are some things here.
I do.
Okay.
It's the doomsday scenario.
Well, it's the non-conference strength of schedule.
Well, no, it's also if they lose at LSU and were to lose at home to Ole Miss and then lose again in the SEC tournament to someone that's outside the field.
Yeah.
That to me, that is how they get left out because they, again, if we talked about the difference between an Arkansas and Mississippi State in one argument. The difference between Arkansas and Missouri and the other argument is that the computers love Arkansas. The computers do not love Missouri. And I think that is something where I don't think they're going to get left out. But I also would not want to be 0-2 in the next two games going into the SEC tournament. And look, one of the reasons I think Missouri was a 10, and Lenardi brought this up in the Vanderbilt, Florida broadcast, and it's been mentioned by other people before. Remember, too, the SEC has kind of claimed the 8-9 land, if you will. Somebody has to move down, and the committee will have that option to avoid Kentucky playing Missouri, in an 8-9 game, right? You can't do that. So someone has to move down, and that's where, again, if Missouri's not getting the benefit of the doubt compared to some of these other teams, you can see them moving down to a 10 seed. But again, what has to happen is just the ultimate doomsday scenario for Missouri. That's why I'm not completely counting out the possibility just yet because they're not loved enough by the computers. But if you're talking about a team that has good wins and has a completely, here it is again, Missouri fans, knock on wood, clean sheet beyond quad one, I don't know how you could leave Missouri out. But that's what we just said, right? If we're leaning on that, well, now you got two opportunities in your next two games, LSU and Ole Miss, to have all of a sudden those losses that they don't have yet. So, yeah, to me, it's if you just want to, not take any chances, win one of the next two games. You can even afford to lose one, but you have to win at least one of these next two because I don't think you want two of those X's on your resume and a potential third in the SEC tournament, depending on who you play. So, but that's the ultimate doomsday scenario. Have they banked enough good wins right now? I think absolutely. But you don't want to counter that with two inexcusable losses to finish the regular season for a team that's also considered a 10 seed or a 9 seed, because you can go backwards pretty quick if you add a couple losses like that. And if the teams behind you right now start to make a push, I wouldn't want to put yourself in that scenario, Missouri, but I don't think that they're going to get left out. But it's something to think about.
Yeah, the issues for Missouri, you mentioned the clean sheet, but let's see, 5-8 quad one, which I mean that's actually not a detriment. 3-5 on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it 4-5 on the road now? Now 4-5 on the road. Oh, yeah, that's right. Picked one up at Georgia over the weekend. I didn't update this year. The wins again. The big wins, you love them. At Tennessee, Home wins over Iowa State, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, neutral win over Illinois back in December. So I think probably win one and they're okay.
All it takes is one to not necessarily, I mean, to be comfortable that you're in. Seeding wise, like I said, I think they're going to be a fascinating case because I could see them being seated way higher than people think. I could also see them being right around where some people are projecting them at the moment. So they're an interesting one.
Yeah, again, I think Providence is in some ways a good comparison to where Missouri was last year. Now, look, if you look at the strength of resume computers, strength of resume has Missouri at 18 and KPI has Missouri at 28. So that right there, Blake, that's 6 seed territory.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. That's why I think that they are either way higher than people think
I'm
right
saying
now.
that backs up what you said, right?
Yeah, there's
if you
a
want
delay
to put
again,
a number
folks,
to it,
just for the record.
Yeah.
There's a delay. So if we talk over each other, we're not trying to, but that's why I think they could be much higher than people think. But I'm just doing the doomsday scenario of I would not want to, in the final 2 games of the regular season, take what you've leaned on, and that is unbeaten in quad 2, 3, and 4, and all of a sudden add 2. I mean, those would be 2 quad 4 losses, right? Or would LSU be in the where is that? No, LSU would be quad 3, correct? Yeah, because LSU is are they? Yeah, they're probably in the they're in the 100s, right? So yeah. Shoot at a quad 3 and where's Missouri at? Is Missouri in the top 160? Not Missouri, Ole Miss. Yes, they are. Okay.
I think Ole Miss is still there. Yeah.
All right. So 2 quad 3 losses. That's fine. But you just, again, you don't want those. So
no.
That
might get you Dayton.
That's my point. You don't want to play around with those kind of things this time of year. That's all I'm saying. So
okay, if you're the committee and you're picking one more SEC team, do you go Auburn or Mississippi State right now?
I know where you're leaning towards.
Well, I think it's really close. Let's go Auburn first, okay? Tigers are 36 in the nets. They took a hit at Kentucky this weekend. 33 in strength of resume between the two computers, 31 in the predictives, 19 and 10 overall, 9 and 7. And some not real good things if you start looking deeper. 4 and 7 on the road, 2 and 8 quad 1, 1 loss quad 2, 1 loss quad 3. Although I don't think those were losses to awful teams. I think those were power conference teams that just slipped down a little bit. Home wins over Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, and a neutral win over Northwestern that's looking better all the time. Auburn, you don't want to go over from here on out.
No, you don't, because I don't think they're going to get in if that happens. I just think all they need is one. They just need one win, and I think they're in. But I mean that between these 2 games in the SEC tournament, I think Auburn just needs a win somewhere, somehow, some way, and that will determine their outcome. But I would not want to be Auburn, like I said, losing 9 of 12 heading into the SEC tournament, and then I don't know where they'd rank in terms of the seeding in the SEC tournament. I assume they'd be a 7, 8, 9 probably. So at least then you're probably looking at playing a tournament projected team in the first round there, unless you're the 7, I suppose. I don't know. There's a lot of wild possibilities, but I think just like Missouri could be much higher than we think right now, I think Auburn could be a bit lower than people think. And they already think that Auburn is near that line right now. Not saying last 4 in line, but I think that they're getting there. So that's all Auburn has to do. It's very simple. Win one more game, and I think they will get the tournament. If they don't, then I think that there's a good chance they will get left out. So, yeah. It's really that simple.
Yeah, two more teams to discuss. One is Mississippi State, which is right there on the bubble and probably would be in right now. And then Vanderbilt, which is a long shot, but we'll humor Vandy fans with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Mississippi State, 39 net, 40 strength of schedule, 238 non-conference strength of schedule. That is one of State's orange flags, somewhere between yellow and red, I guess. Strength of resume, 41. That's a little borderline. 7-9 to conference is not what you want. We'll see how much the committee factors that in. 11-4 at home, not great. You've seen a lot of teams with 2 and 3 home losses. State's got 4. That's kind of a lot for an at-large team. 4-5 on the road, not great. 4-7 quad 1, not great, but not awful.
I'm hearing a lot of not great in here, so that's not good.
But let me. There's another side of the coin here, Blake. And we'll get there.
I know.
A couple of quad 2 losses, a quad 3 loss, and here's some good stuff. 4-1 neutral floor. That's pretty nice. That's 8 wins away from home. Wins over. These are all at home. TCU, Missouri, Texas A&M. Really nice wins. Win at Arkansas. Really nice win. Marquette on a neutral floor. Very, very nice win. Marquette's probably a 3 or 4 seed right now. The big win test Mississippi State is in. Look, we said this for a while. State gets to 9-9 in the league. I don't see where there's enough negatives there to keep Mississippi State out. But I know that you have been worried for a long time about the possibility of an 8-10 league record keeping State out. I don't know that I'm as there as you are, but it's not nothing either.
Yeah, I mean that to me is still something that I am looking at this from Mississippi State's standpoint. If they're projected to be in right now, the biggest thing to remember is that other teams now have to knock them out, or they have to knock themselves out. So it is, once again, very simple for Mississippi State too. They win the next 2 games, they're a lock to make the tournament. 100%. They are in. If they don't, then, go into the SEC tournament, lose the first game there, then maybe it gets a little questionable. And again, remember, it's a matter also of who you lose to. Let's simplify this more. They have to beat South Carolina. All right. That's a must-win game on Tuesday night. If they lose at Vanderbilt, okay. Then they're 8-10. And then
win
they
them
go
both, they're in.
Yeah, 100%. If they win both, they're locked to make the tournament. 9-9 SEC. I know they say it don't matter, but I'm just telling you, I think it does. Especially, when you're competing against other bubble teams. You can't tell me that's not going to be a factor. Even though the SEC is going to get how many teams? Maybe 7, 8 teams in. I think actually, when we had this conversation a month ago, the SEC looks a lot stronger now. Because why? A&M's continue to stay their course. Kentucky's making their run. Tennessee's not moving anywhere. Alabama's still at the top. Arkansas closer to a lock now, if not already. So, the SEC is actually helping Mississippi State here. So, this 8-10 argument, we'll see. But I think it's still something that I would not want to put that decision in the committee's hands by Mississippi State. That's all I'm saying. Not saying they cannot get in because, like I said, somebody already has. Alabama got in 5 years ago. But I would not want to be in that spot if I'm Mississippi State. That's my only argument there. The non-conference is what you said. That's something I brought up before. I think that's something that would worry me a little bit if you're in that spot. But you can also say, hey, maybe this wasn't a great non-conference schedule, but we beat Marquette, and we're going to hang our hat on that, and that can help too. So, I mean, for me, I think Mississippi State's going to get in because I think they're going to beat South Carolina. I think they can beat Vanderbilt. But they're also a team that I think is probably going to trying to figure out where they're going to be slotted in the SEC tournament's the interesting thing, right? Because theoretically, they could still, let me see how this plays out. Georgia. No, I mean, yeah, theoretically, they can still be. Here's the thing, right? If Mississippi State's finishes the number 11 seed and they're playing on Wednesday night, how is that a great argument to the committee that you are playing in the play-in night on the SEC tournament? Because 7-9 could put you in the play-in right now, right? I'm not at the moment. You know what I'm saying? Like they can, if they were to lose, let's
It
say
could
Georgia,
happen.
it can absolutely still happen. Is my point. Because guess who they don't hold tiebreakers against? They don't hold a tiebreaker against Georgia because Georgia beat them. They don't hold a tiebreaker against Florida because Florida beat them. So keep that in mind for Mississippi State. The margin for error is kind of small right now. And I think Lenardi said, I know I'm just telling you what Lenardi said. I'm not saying it's the end all be all. He said after, on Saturday after Mississippi State won, beat Texas A&M, he said he thought Mississippi State was still among the last four in. He did not think that win boosted them any further than just still staying on that last four in mind, maybe the first team in there, whatever. But he said he kind of thought they were still in that range. So that to me tells you what you need to know just from one person's side of it. Okay. And so that's all I'm saying. I think they just need to win the next two games. They're locked to make the tournament at that point. So,
Okay, last one. Can the Vanderbilt Commodores put themselves in position to be in position? A lot of things to suggest Vanderbilt cannot. Right now, of course, Vanderbilt nowhere near. And boy, I got a sheet with like red and pink flags and stuff, and boy, there's a lot of red ink on Vandy's sheet. Number 117 non-conference strength of schedule, 13 losses overall, 4-6 on the road, 1-2 neutral, which makes them 5-8 away from home. That's not awful if you've got other things. All right, big issues: 3-9 quad 1, 4-2 quad 3, 5-1 quad 4. But some nice wins here. Tennessee and Arkansas, Auburn and Pitt all at home. All four of those teams would be in the tournament today, we believe. Although Tennessee, the only one of those that's probably better for sure, better than 8 seed for sure. Here is the big if for Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt beats Kentucky, if Vanderbilt meets Mississippi State, do the Commodores have a chance? At that point, they would be what, 11-7 in the league? I mean, I think they'd have to do more in Nashville. You think the bubble burst in Baton Rouge with that loss?
I think the bubble burst for the scenario of can they just beat Kentucky and Mississippi State and get in? My answer is absolutely not. Those would be two nice wins. But guess what? Take one of those wins away because of what you did at LSU. Take them they even out. So a terrible loss and a good win has to meet somewhere in the middle. So you're basically going to bank one great win the rest of the way. If you win both of those, you're basically banking one great win because you have the bad loss in there to counter it. So that is absolutely not enough to put them in the tournament. They have to do work in the SEC tournament no matter what the scenario is. Went out. Now, look, if they go to Kentucky and win by 40, beat Mississippi State by 40, they got a shot at that point because the net's moving them up 50 spots. They may join Tennessee in the number 3 line. But I mean, that's honestly, that's it. Like, I don't see a path unless they get just almost and like we said, there's no reason to do this yet, but it's all dependent on where they are in the tournament. Who are the matchups? Who could they play that can boost their resume? Those kind of things. Right now, we have no idea, so there's no reason to talk about it. It's just you have to win the next 2 games. That's really all there is to it. It's again very simple for this bracketology edition. They have to win their next 2 games, and then that conversation can return at that point. Because if they don't, you have to win the SEC tournament. Period.
Yeah, and look, I did the probabilities through Bart Torvik and Ken Pomeroy. Vanderbilt's got a 10% shot to win both those games.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't mean each 10%. I mean 10% to win, to go 2-0 in those games. And so then all of a sudden, maybe if you win your first round SEC tournament game, maybe you get talked about. I think 0-2, forget it. It's win the whole thing. 1-2, maybe you got a sub 5% chance if you don't run the table, depending on what others do. But it is having to squint to see it at this point, and then hope once you squint a little bit.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to add. They got to win the next 2 games, and then we can revisit the conversation after that. But right now, it doesn't matter based on the loss of LSU.
Lots of stuff coming up. We're recapping these games as they're played every night. We are giving you bracketology a couple times a week. We're doing predictions. We're doing baseball stuff. We're doing all kinds of stuff. Blaine Gilmer, our buddy, is doing some football stuff. Best way to get all that, hit the subscribe button. That costs you nothing. Hit the like button. That helps us out. He is Blake Lovell. I am Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14. We'll do another bracketology probably Friday. So again, thank you for watching, and we will see you then.